Blog Talk Radio.
No, yeah, I think it's going now. Hello, welcome to Hidden Human Story Radio with your host, Rita Jean Moran. Today is Thursday, August 1st, 2013, and I'm your host, Rita Jean Moran. Sorry about some of the technical difficulty we've had in the last 7 minutes, but hopefully that's fixed. So let's begin. Today's show, on today's show I'm going to talk about Nordic mythology, travels to Vinland, Celtic mythology, and the Celtic travels to America. After writing my children's books, The Library Kids, I had begun to see the similarity between all mythologies. For years, I would compare the pantheons from around the world, and when I found the ancient Greek, Roman, and Egyptian writings, I was able to piece together a story of the past that is hidden from the human race. During the last few shows, I have revealed this ancient past that has been hidden. I talked about the ancient Greek gods and goddesses who were real people, and that they probably existed around 16,000 to 17,000 years ago per my estimates. And I also talked about the North American legends of Red Horn and White Buffalo Woman, and the stories of Quetzalcoatl and the Birdman cult throughout the Americas. I also described the tales of ancient red-haired giants from all around the world. So as I said, tonight I'm going to talk about the Nordic and Celtic people and some of their stories of the past. The Nordics are and were a group of people in Northern Europe that include the ancient Vikings. Generally, Nordic countries include Sweden, which has about 9 million people today, Norway, which has about 5 million people, Finland has about 5 million people, Greenland has 56,000, Iceland, 320,000 people, parts of northern Germany, there's 81 million people in Germany, and Denmark, which has about 5 million people. The Nordics have traveled all over the world, including to the Americas. They also have a rich collection of ancient mythology and legends and include a pantheon of gods and goddesses as well. Many of the ancient myths have been recorded in poetic form in what is called the Poetic Eddas. The Nordic pantheon included gods divided into multiple groups in multiple worlds. The pantheon included the following gods and goddesses: Odin, who was father of the gods; Balder, the son of Odin, who was killed; Freyr, a god of fertility; Freyja, a goddess of fertility; Frigg, wife of Odin, mother of Balder; Loki, trickster god; Thor, god of thunder; Tyr, god of war; V, brother of Odin; and Vili, brother of Odin. There are many other Nordic gods and goddesses, but these are some of the main gods and goddesses of the Nordics. And some of their names will vary depending on which Nordic group you're referring to. The dragon was also a very important symbol, as well as the evergreen trees of the Nordics. Now, according to Nordic traditions, the beginning of the universe began with fire and ice. There were only two worlds at the time, Muspelheim and Niflheim. When the warm air of Muspelheim touched the cold ice of Niflheim, a giant named Ymir and an icy cow named Audhumla were created. A son came from Ymir's foot, and a man and woman came from Ymir's armpits. This man and woman were the Jotun, or the giants. From Ymir and the cow came Buri, and from Buri and the giantess came a male named Bor. Bor became the father of the gods, 3 gods, Odin, Vili, and Ve. These 3 gods created humans. Now, according to Nordic mythology, the universe is held up by a great ash tree called Yggdrasil. It comes from one of Odin's names, Yeager, or Eager. Around the tree there are 9 worlds. The world serpent is coiled around the roots of the tree. There are 7 worlds in the roots. They are Muspelheim, which is a land of raging fire, Svartalfheim, a land of the dwarfs, Hell, land of the dead, Niflheim, land of ice and mist, Jotunheim, land of the frost giants, Vanaheim, land of the Vanir, and Alfheim, land of the elves. The dragon, Nidhogger, constantly gnaws at the roots, holding Niflheim. Niflheim is the underworld and is the land of snow and ice. The upper world at the top of the tree is called the Asgard, and this is the home of the gods. Valhalla is a hall of warriors who have died bravely and are allowed to feast and drink there for all eternity. Humans live in the Midgard, or the middle of the tree. The human world is surrounded by a sea of monsters, but we are linked to the Asgard by a rainbow bridge. Odin is the father god and is wisest amongst all the gods. He rides across the sky on Sleipnir, which we know is his gray 8-legged horse. A pair of wolves will ride with him, and his 2 ravens that sit on his shoulders fly across the world and come back and report to him all that they have seen. The Valkyries are servants that attend to the gods. Skaldas told the history of the Nordics. It is said that Odin hung on this tree, Yggdrasil, by 1 foot for 9 days. After this ordeal, he received the sacred 24 runes and 9 powerful songs. Odin said, "I know what I hung on a windy tree 9 long nights, wounded with a spear, dedicated to Odin, myself to myself, on that tree of which no man knows from where its roots run." Now it is said that Odin shares the runes with worthy men and women. The runes are used to write thoughts down, and also used to tell the future. They are powerful, and Odin was able to use them to enchant the mind, raise the dead, turn the tide of war, and make the warriors strong, incite fear, heal the wounded and sick, and bind the forces of chaos. The first humans were called Ask and Embla, and they originated from Yggdrasil. Ragnarok is the final destiny of the gods and humans. At the time of Ragnarok, man will become evil. Brothers will fight brothers, and no one will care about their kinship. The world will go through an axe age, a sword age, a wind age, and a wolf age before it enters into Ragnarok. There will be no kindness or mercy. Various natural disasters will take place. The land will be submerged into the water, and a final battle of the gods will take place, and the dead will walk the earth. Odin will fight the wolf Fenrir and be killed by him. Freyr will fight Surtur. Vioar will avenge Odin by killing Fenrir. Thor will fight the serpent and defeat it, but will collapse afterwards. After the war, the sun will become black, and the earth will sink into the sea. The stars will vanish, and the flames will touch the sky. After all of this, the earth will reappear from the water. The surviving gods will meet together. Some gods will be reborn. They will talk about the games that the old gods used to play, and the grass will grow again. Humans will descend from Lif and Lifrasir, who will be the only surviving humans after Ragnarok. The gods and the humans will live together in peace. Wickedness and evil will no longer exist. I personally believe that Ragnarok has already happened. Here again, Nordic mythology divides time up into ages, just as the Greeks and Egyptians and the Romans did. Now I want to talk about the Poetic Edda. According to Wikipedia, the Poetic Edda is a collection of Old Norse poems primarily preserved in the Icelandic medieval manuscript Codex Regius. Along with Snorri Sturluson's Prose Edda, the Poetic Edda is the most important extant source on Norse mythology and Germanic heroic legends, and from the early 19th century onwards has had a powerful influence on later Scandinavian literature, not merely through the stories it contains, but through the visionary force and dramatic quality of many of the poems. It has also become an inspiring model for many later innovations in poetic meter, particularly in the Nordic languages, offering many varied examples of tierce stress-based metrical schemes working without any final rhyme, and instead using alliterative devices and strong concentrated imagery. Poets who have acknowledged their debt to the Poetic Edda include Wilhelm Ekelund, August Strindberg, J.R. Tolkien, Ezra Pound, and Karen Boye. Now, the Codex Regius was written in the 13th century, but nothing is known of its whereabouts, nothing was known of its whereabouts until 1643, when it came into the possession of Brynjolfur Sveinsson, then Bishop of Skalholt. At that time, versions of the Prose Edda were well known in Iceland, but scholars speculated that there was once another Edda, or Elder Edda, which contained the pagan poems which Snorri quotes in his Prose Edda. When Codex Regius was discovered, it seemed that this speculation had proven correct. Brynjolfur attributed the manuscript to Samunda the Learned, a larger-than-life 12th century Icelandic priest. While this attribution is rejected by modern scholars, the name Samunda Edda is still sometimes associated with Poetic Edda. Bishop Brynjolfur sent Codex Regius as a present to the Danish king, hence the name for centuries, as it was stored in the Royal Library in Copenhagen. But in 1971, it was returned to Iceland. The Eddic poems are composed in alliterative verse, and as I said, the authorship is pretty much unknown. There isn't any attribution to any particular author. Okay, the dating of the poems has been a lively source of scholarly argument for a long time, and some believe it came from the later half of the 10th century. And some of the poems have some clues to their age, but it doesn't seem that they were any older than 985. Okay. Now, Iceland wasn't settled until 870, so anything composed before that time would necessarily have been elsewhere, but most likely in Scandinavia. Okay. Now, the Codex Regius, or the Poetic Edda, has some main poems, and those include the following: the Volupsa, Wise Woman's Prophecy; the Havamal, the Ballad of the High One; Vafthrudnismal, the Ballad of Vafthrudnir; Grimnismal, the Ballad of Grimnir; the Skirnismal, the Ballad of Skirnir; Harbor Eslajud, the Poem of Harbard; Himisk Vida, the Lay of Hymir; Lokasena, Loki's Wrangling; the Primskida, the Lay of Thrym; the Vulan Kvida, the Lay of Voland, and Alvismal, the Ballad of Alvis. Some of the things not in that Codex Regius, but also is part of the Poetic Edda, is Baldur's Dreams, the Mill's Song, called Grotus Songer, Rig's Bula, the Song of Rig, and several other tales, heroic lays, as they call them. And some of them are also divided up into time periods. Now, I want to read from the first poem out of the Poetic Edda called the Voluspo, and this is a tale of Odin seeking the counsel of what they call a vulva, which is the word for the wise woman in Nordic. The prophetess and medicine woman is what that vulva was. Okay, here we go. Hearing I ask from the holy races, from Hemdal's sons, both high and low, thou wilt, Father, that well I relate. Old tales I remember of men long ago. I remember yet the giants of yore, who gave me bread in the days gone by. 9 worlds I knew, the 9 in the tree, with mighty roots beneath the mold. Of old was the age when Ymir lived, sea nor cool waves nor sand there were. Earth had not been, nor heaven above, but a yawning gap, and grass nowhere. Then Bur's son lifted the level land, Mythgarth the mighty, there they made. The sun from the south warmed the stones of the earth, and green was the ground with growing leeks. The sun, the sister of the moon, from the south, her right hand cast over heaven's rim. No knowledge, she said, where her home should be. The moon knew not what might was his. The stars knew not where their stations were. Then sought the gods their assembly seats, the holy ones in council held. Names they gave them to noon and twilight. Morning they named, and the waning moon, night and evening the years to number. At Ithaval met the mighty gods, shrines and temples they timbered high. Forges they set, and the smithered ore, tongs they wrought, and tools they fashioned. In their dwellings at peace they played at tables. Of gold no lack did the gods then know, till thither came up giant maids 3, huge of might, out of Jotunheim. Then sought the gods their assembly seats, the holy ones in council held, to find who should raise the race of dwarfs out of Brimer's blood, and the legs of Blaine. There was Motsignor, the mightiest maid of all the dwarfs, in Durin next. Many a likeness of men they made, the dwarfs in the earth, as Durin said. Nii and Nithi, Northian Suthri, Austrian Vestri, Alchoff, Davlin, Narin, Nain, Nippon, Dane, Bilfer, Bofer, Bomber, Nori, and Anne and Auner, I, Joth, Vitner, Vigan, Gandalf, Vindolf, Thrain, Thakin, Thorin, Thror, Vit, and Lit, Nair and Nairath, now have I told, Regan and Rathsvith, the list all right. Fili, Keely, Fundin, Nali, Heptfili, Hanner, Svire, Frar, Hanbori, Frag, and Loni, Orveng, Jari, Ekins, Jaldi. The race of dwarfs in Dalvin's throng, down to Lofar, the list must I tell. The rocks they left, and through wet lands they sought a home in the fields of sand. There was Drapner and Dolthrasser, Hor, Hogspori, Helvang, Glone, Doriori, Doof, Anvari, Skiffer, Viffer, Scotfi, I, Elfin, Yigni, Ekins, Jaldi, Flaujar, and Frosty, Fifth, and Jeaner. So for all time shall the tale be known, the list of all the forebears of Lofar. Then from the throng did 3 come forth, from the home of the gods, the mighty and gracious, 2 without fate on the land they found. Ask and Embla, empty of might, Soul they had not, sense they had not, heat nor motion nor goodly hue. Soul gave Othin, sense gave honor, or Honor. Heat gave Lothar and godly hue. And ash I know, Yggdrasil its name, with water white, is the great tree wet. Thence come the dews that fall in the dales, green by earth's well does it ever grow. Thence come the maidens, mighty in wisdom, three from the dwelling down near the tree. Earth is one named, Verthandi the next, on the wood they scored and sculled the third. Laws they made there, and life allotted to the sons of men, and set their fates. The war I remember, the first in the world, when the gods with spears had smitten Golvig, and in the hall of Hor had burned her, 3 times burned, and 3 times born. Often again, yet ever she lives. Heath they named her, who sought their home, the wide-seeing witch in magic wise. Minds she bewitched, that were moved by her magic. To evil women a joy she was. On the host his spear did Othin hurl, then in the world did war first come. The wall that girdled the gods was broken, and the field by the warlike wains was trodden. Then sought the gods their assembly seats, the holy ones in councils held, whether the gods should tribute give, or to all alike should worship belong. Then sought the gods their assembly seats, the holy ones in councils held, to find who with venom the air had filled, or had given oath's bride to the giant's brood. In swelling rage then rose up Thor. Seldom he sits when he such things hears. And the oaths were broken, the words and the bonds, the mighty pledges between them made. I know of the horn of Hemdil hidden under the high-reaching holy tree. On it there pours from Valfather's pledge a mighty stream. Would you know yet more? Alone I sat when the old one sought me, the terror of gods, and gazed in mine eyes. What hast thou to ask? Why comest thou hither? Othin I know, where thine eyes is hidden. I know where Othin's eye is hidden. Deep in the wide famed well of Mimir, mead from the pledge of Othin each morn. Does Mimir drink? Would you know yet more? Necklaces had I and rings from here, father. Wise was my speech and my magic wisdom. Widely I saw over all the world, and on all sides saw I Valkyries assemble, ready to ride to the ranks of the gods. Skuld bore the shield, and Skogul rode next. Skuth hilt Gondel and Gerskogul. Of Hergin's maidens the list yet have ye heard, Valkyries ready to ride over the earth. I saw for Balder the bleeding god, the son of Othin, his destiny set. Famous and fair in the lofty fields, full grown in strength, the mistletoe stood. From the branch which seemed so slender and fair came a harmful shaft that Hoth should hurl. But the brother of Balder was born ere long, and one night old fought Othin's son. His hands he washed not, his hair he combed not, till he bore to the baled blaze Balder's foe. But in Fensler did Frigg weep sore, for Valhalia's need. Would you know yet more? One did I see in the wet woods bound, a lover of ill, and to Loki like. By the side does Sigyn sit, nor is glad to see her mate. Would you know yet more? From the east there pours through poisoned vales, with swords and daggers the river slith. Northward a hall in Nithvalere of gold there rose from Sinri's race, and in Oaklenor another stood, where the giant Brimmer his bear hall had. A hall I saw, far from the sun, on Nastron it stands, and the doors face north. Venom drops the smoke vent down, from around the walls do serpents wind. I saw the wading through rivers wild, treacherous men and murderers too, and workers of ill with the wives of men. There Nithhogg sucked the blood of the slain, and the wolf tore men. Would you know yet more? The giantess old of Ironwood sat, in the east and bore the brood of Fenrir. Among these one in monster's guise was soon to steal the sun from the sky. There feeds he full on the flesh of the dead, in the home of the gods he reddens with gore. Dark grows the sun, and in summer soon come mighty storms. Would you know yet more? On a hill there sat, and smote on his harp, Egthar the joyous, the giant's warder. Above him the cock in the birdwood crowed. Fair and red did Farjalar stand. Then to the gods crowded Golem Gambi. He wakes the heroes in Othin's hall. And beneath the earth does another crow, the rust-red bird at the bars of hell. Now Garm howls loud before Nippelar. The fetters will burst and the wolf run free. Much do I know, more can see. Of the fate of the gods, the mighty in fight. Brothers shall fight and fell each other, and sisters' sons shall kinship stain. Hard is it on earth with mighty whoredom. Axe time, sword time, shields are sundered. Wind time, wolf time, ere the world falls. Nor ever shall men each other spare. Fast move the sons of Mim and Fate. Is heard in the note of the Jarlarm horn. Loud blows Hemdall, the horn is aloft. In fear quake all who on hell roads are. Yggdrasil shakes and shivers on high the ancient limbs, and the giant is loose. To the head of Mim does Othin give heed, but the kinsmen of Search shall slay him soon. How fare the gods, how fare the elves? All Jotunheim groans, the gods are at council. Loud roar the dwarfs by the doors of stone. The masters of the rocks, would you know yet more? Now Garm howls loud before Niflheim. The fetters will burst and the wolf run free. Much do I know and more can see of the fate of the gods, the mighty in fight. From the east comes Hemr with shield held high. In giant wrath does the serpent writhe. Over the waves he twists, and tawny eagle gnaws corpses screaming. Nalgfar is loose. Over the sea from the north there sails a ship with the people of hell. At the helm stands Loki. After the wolf do wild men follow, and with them the brother of Byleist goes. Serp fares from the south with the scourge of branches. The son of the battle god shone from his sword. The crags are sundered, the giant women sink. The dead throng hell away, and heaven is cloven. Now comes to Helen yet another hurt, when Othin fares to fight with the wolf, and Bailey's fair slayer seeks out Surt. For there must fall the joy of Frigg. Then comes Sigfather's mighty son Vithar to fight with the foaming wolf. In the giant's son does he thrust his sword full to the heart. His father is avenged. Hither there comes the son of Lothlin. The bright snake gapes to heaven above. Against the serpent goes Othin's son. In an anger smites the warder of earth. Forth from their homes must all men flee. 9 paces fares the son of Fargin, and slain by the serpent. Fairless he sinks. The sun turns black, earth sinks in the sea. The hot stars down from the heaven are whirled. Fierce grows the steam and the life-feeding flame, till fire heaps high about heaven itself. Now Garm howls the loud before Niflheim. The fetters will burst and the wolf run free. Much do I know and more can see of the fate of the gods, the mighty in fight. Now do I see the earth anew, rise all green from the waves again. The cataracts fall and the eagle flies, and fish he catches beneath the cliffs. The gods in Ithval meet together, of the terrible girdler of earth they talk, and the mighty past they call to mind, and the ancient runes of the ruler of gods. In wondrous beauty once again shall the golden table stand mid the grass, which the gods had owned in the days of old. Then fields unsowed bear ripened fruit, and ills grow better, and Balder comes back. Balder and Hoth dwell, in Rap's battle hall, and the mighty gods, would you know yet more? Then Honor wins the prophetic wand, and the sons of the brothers of Chepfagi abide. In Vinheim now, would you know yet more? More fair than the sun, a hall I see. Roofed with gold, on Gimli it stands. There shall the righteous rulers dwell, and happiness ever there shall they have. There comes on high all power to hold, a mighty lord, all land he rules. From below the dragon dark comes forth, Nithhord flying from Nithaljo. The bodies of men on the wings he bears, the serpent bright. But now I must sink. Okay. So, it's interesting to me because this poem talks about dwarves, little people, and some of the things that they were doing, and that these dwarves resided in the earth, inside the earth. So that's interesting. And she pretty much is describing Ragnarok here, as well as creation. The idea of a giant coming out from the tree is an interesting one, and talk about that later. Balder, to me, is the equivalent of Dionysus Osiris, and here he was killed by mistletoe. A trickery. It was trickery to get a brother to shoot him with a mistletoe arrow, whereas Osiris was tricked by getting into a coffin. And we'll talk about Egyptian mythology in a later show. I would equate Odin with Zeus. The two brothers, Vili and V, probably Poseidon and Hades. The wife, Frigg, would be Hera, but she's not really the mother of Balder. She would be stepmother. And then some of these other, Freya and Frey, Apollo and Artemis is who I would compare them to. But it's interesting, and they also divided up time into several ages. The Wolf Age is apparently the last age before everything is reset, so to say. And in some later shows, I'm going to talk about the importance of wolf imagery and how it's being used quite a bit today, and by certain people to bring in the end of the age through destruction. And how it's also used in a lot of the music industry in Hollywood. All right, so now let's talk about how the Viking travels to the Americas. For a fact, the Vikings did come to the Americas. They tried to set up a settlement, and they were just constantly attacked by the people that were here. Eric the Red was a famous warrior, but he had gotten into trouble for killing two fellow Vikings, and he was banished to Iceland from Norway around 982. He went there, and then he took a trip out in the water to see if there was any more land, and he found Greenland and started a settlement there. He had a son who was named Leif Erikson, and the last name of a Viking child is usually the first name of the father, and the word son afterwards if it's a boy. Thus, Ericsson. All right, Leif had grew up and decided to journey even further on the water to see if there was new land, and he did find the Americas, and he called it Vinland because of all the grapes that he found. And the Vikings called the native people of Iceland and Greenland and the Americas Skraeling, meaning weaklings. After Leif returned with his stories, his brother Thorvald decided to visit and explore the new Vinland. He took a crew of about 30 and sailed there, and he stayed over the winter and decided to explore more in the in the spring. However, a fight broke out between the natives and the Vikings, and several natives were killed. The Vikings were outnumbered, and when they were sleeping, they heard voices telling them to get out of the land as fast as they could, and when they tried to, they were attacked by the natives with arrows. The Vikings didn't fight back, but concentrated on escaping. Once they were out to sea, Thorvald realized he had been hit with an arrow. The crew sailed on up the land where they stayed until Thorvald died and was buried there. The crew gathered some food and headed back to Greenland. Now, Leif Erikson's other brother, Thorstein, decided to sail to Vinland next. He and his crew had a rough time getting there, but made it to the first settlement. And unfortunate illness swept through, and Thorstein died. The survivors sailed back to Greenland in the spring. Well, another Viking named Karlsefni, who ended up marrying Thorstein's widow, decided to take a trip to Vinland, and they settled in at the first camp and got through one winter. But the next summer, the natives came and bothered them again. They wanted the Vikings' weapons, but the Vikings said no, and that started another fight. This time the Vikings won, but felt uneasy about staying in Vinland. They gathered up supplies and sailed back to Greenland. Well, the last trip to Vinland is the one with Leif's sister, Freydis, and her husband. They gathered up a group and they sailed to Vinland, but fights broke out amongst the Viking settlers in Vinland, which led to bloodshed. Two men had moved into Leif Erikson's old house in Vinland, and Freydis argued about it until things led to the death of the men and their supporters. So the survivors ended up sailing back. Okay, we're going to take a little break and come back and talk about the Celts. Okay, let's talk about the Celts. Well, the Celts were people who lived all over Europe, including Germany, Spain, France, England, and Ireland. Okay, they had their own language and their own mythologies and legends. Today, most of Celtic lore comes from Ireland. The Irish cycles include 4 major time periods from the time of the ancient gods to the last kings of Ireland. Celtic mythology is also rich in stories of giants and little people. The main gods and goddesses of the Irish Celts are the following: Dagda, leader or father of the gods; the Morrigan, a triple battle goddess, sounds like Athena; Lug, Lug, or ancient god king; Bridget, Dagda's daughter; Epona, a horse goddess; Nuada, ancient god king; Gobnu, smith of the gods, that sounds like Hephaestus; Mana Maclair, god of the sea, sounds like Poseidon; and Dian Kek, god of medicine, sounds like Apollo. Now, other Celtic peoples, such as the Welsh and the Gauls, have their own names for their gods and goddesses. And the Gaelic people used a script called Ogham to record their myths. The Irish didn't have many of their myths recorded until after the arrival of Christianity. Druids, known as bards, would sing the history of ancient Ireland from generation to generation, and this is how they preserved their history, just like the Skalda of the Nordics, or the priests and priestesses of the Romans and Greeks and Egyptians, or the wise people of the Native Americans, or priests and priestesses of Mesoamericans. Now, the Celts grew grains, vegetables, and fruit, and they ate breads and stews and drank mead. Bards were the poets, like I said, who sang the songs of the history, and they often sang during festivals. The women wore long dresses, and the men wore shirts and tunics. The women wore their hair back in combs or in braids, and the men were tall and strong. They had music and crafts and several inventions, and they had the use of the wheel for their chariots, and they had ships to travel across the waters just like the Nordics did. They buried their dead in burial mounds, hint, hint, and also made effigies, hint, hint, of animals and symbols in the grass that can still be seen today. Now, the Tuatha De Danann was a group of people that came in and invaded Ireland, and they battled these sea gods called the Fomorians for the land of Ireland. The Tuatha De Danann are credited with creating humans, and the giants of the sea were jealous, and they vowed to defeat the gods and goddesses and take the land and humans for themselves. They lost after a great battle, and the Tuatha De Danann won much after the destruction. However, there were some Fomorian giants that survived after the war. The holidays celebrated by the Celts included Imbolc in February for the coming of spring, Beltane for the beginning of summer in May, Lugnastad in August for the coming of fall, and Samhain in November is the beginning of winter. The vernal equinox in March and September were celebrated, as well as the solstices in June and December. So there are 8 major divisions in their calendar or holidays to celebrate. Now, according to Wikipedia, the first known text that describes the Druids is Julius Caesar's Commentari de Bello Gallico, Book 6, written in the 50s or 40s BCE. A military general who was intent on conquering Gaul and Britain, Caesar described the Druids as being concerned with divine worship, the due performance of sacrifices, private or public, and the interpretation of ritual questions. He claimed that they played an important part in Gaulish society, being one of the 2 respected classes, along with equites, which was a term for horsemen or warriors. And they performed the function of judges. He claimed that they recognized the authority of a single leader who would rule until his death, when a successor would be chosen by vote or through conflict. He also remarked that they met annually at a sacred place in the region occupied by the Carnute tribe in Gaul, while they viewed Britain as the center of Druidic study, and that they were not found amongst the German tribes to the east of the Rhine. According to Caesar, many young men were trained to be Druids, during which time they had to learn all the associated lore by heart. He also claimed their main teaching was that souls do not perish, but after death pass one to another. They were also concerned with the stars and their movements, the size of the cosmos and the earth, the world of nature, and the powers of deities, indicating They were involved with not only such common aspects of religion as theology and cosmology, but also astronomy. However, Caesar held that they were administrators during rituals of human sacrifice, which usually included criminals through a method of being burnt in a wicker man. The Celts, like I said, divided their history up into cycles. And another main compilation in Ireland, known as the Liebhard Gabhala, or Book of Invasions, records this. Now, the Liebhard Gabhala, or another way, Genelach, is a massive genealogical collection, according to Wikipedia, written mainly in the years 1649 to 1650 at the College House of St. Nicholas Church. And he continued to add material into at least 1660, 5 years before he was murdered in 1671. This book was published in 5 volumes in Dublin in 2004, known as the Great Book of Irish Genealogies. Okay, some of the main 4 Irish cycles include the Ulster cycle, Fenian cycle, and cycle of the kings, and then also, before all that, the mythological cycle, which describes 5 invasions of Ireland, including the Tuatha Dé Danann, all the way down to the Milesians. Okay, and talking about some of these cycles, they believe that before the flood, or they had a tradition at least, the earliest inhabitants of Ireland come from the tradition of Cesar, and she was supposed to have been the granddaughter of Noah, from whom there was no room on the ark, and she and her followers, 50 women and 3 men, arrived only 40 days before the deluge and were wiped out, all except Fintan, who transformed into salmon tip. At that point, you could see that their mythology was being influenced by Christianity. And then after the flood, they claim that Ireland was inhabited by the Fomorians, and then they were defeated by the Partholon in some legends. And then Nemed came in, and his descendants became the Forbog. And then the Tuatha Dé Danann came in. Those were the gods and goddesses, or people of the goddess Danu. And they took over. And then the sons of Mil, or the Milesians, who were the descendants of the Spanish King Mil and the Pharaoh's daughter, Queen Skota, they came in and took over and started the kings of Tara and that bloodline. Now, there's also some legends that the Celts had been sailing to the Americas for a very long time, and that would be before the Nordics ever did. A famous man named Saint Brendan, or Brendan the Navigator, who was born in Ireland, had heard stories about a land to the west from his nephew. And so he built a boat and sailed with a few friends across the sea. And the boat was built to be carried by the sea currents. He ended up sailing north, and he passed an island that had sheep and birds, and then he passed an island with ice, and he passed an island with giants who started to throw hot coals at him and his men. And then they continued on, and they were attacked by a huge lion bird called a griffin. But a little bird came and pecked the griffin's eyes out to make it leave the men alone. And then they were attacked by a sea monster that was stopped by another good sea monster. They saw friendly whales along the way, too. And then they made it to America. It was a paradise to them. And then they went back to Ireland. Now, as I said, Ireland has many tales of the little people and giants as well. And one of the famous giant stories of Ireland is the tale of Finn McCool. Okay, according to the ancient story, there was another giant who wanted to fight with Finn, and so he built Giant's Causeway for the giant on another island to cross and come over to his island. And when it was ready, he and his wife plotted a way to trick this other giant into leaving them alone. And what they did was have Finn McCool pretend that he was his own baby. And when the other giant came in, his wife showed the other giant, Finn McCool, dressed up as a baby, telling him that that was the child or the baby of Finn McCool. And the other giant, thinking that that was the baby, got so scared, thinking that if that was how big the baby is, then Finn McCool must be really big up close. And he ran away and left them alone at that point. So that's an interesting tale of some of the giants of Ireland. Well, I hope you've noticed some similarities between the Celtic, Nordic, Greek, and Roman gods, because Julius Caesar certainly did as well, and other Roman scholars did. And Julius Caesar equated the 5 great gods of the Celts with the 5 great gods of the Romans: Hermes, Apollo, Mars, Jupiter, and Minerva. Minerva would be Athena. So, just as I have said, all of these pantheons are really the same. It stems from the same group of people that did their global tour to stop cannibalism and savagery. And over 2,000 years ago, Julius Caesar had noticed the similarity as well. But I don't know if he understood, I don't think he understood why they were very similar or the same. Not the way that I've showed you, that they all come from that, the travels of Dionysius of Cyrus and his family that were written about by Diodorus Siculus, Plutarch, and Nonus. So I hope that you've enjoyed tonight's show. Next week, if all goes well, I'm going to have a special guest on, and it will be a beekeeper, and we'll be talking about the ancient bee goddess and the importance of the bees and the state of the bees. So until next time we meet, take care.